Welcome to rSlash Entitled Parents, where a Karen gets her day ruined at Disney World. So, for some background, I work in a retail chain. Most of the time I work behind the till, mostly for 8 hours at a time. Now, recently, the government has been cracking down on items such as knives, cigarettes, and lighters being sold to underage people. In our store, it's company policy to ask for ID on these items if they look underage. Side note, if it was found out that I had sold an item to an underage person, I would lose my job and have an investigation done by the police, looking at a criminal record if they found reason. I am not losing my job over lighters. I'm still in school and need the money. So, to the entitlement. It was a regular day in the store, the tills were extremely busy and the store was making big bucks. It was around Christmas. So a customer had just finished paying and was leaving while I called up the next customer. This typical looking adult wannabe teen girl came up to my till with a few things and set them down on the conveyor belt. I began scanning her things and then I scanned the lighters. The way our system works is that when something is scanned that needs ID, the screen goes red and informs me that the customer needs to produce ID. It even gives you the date they should be born to be of age to buy the item. So I keep scanning the rest of the items, company policy, in case there's any more ID goods. I get to the end of her items, and then the conversation begins. Excuse me, ma'am, do you have any ID on you? What do I need ID for? It's for the lighters, they're age restricted. If you have ID with you, I can check it on the system and you can purchase them. Well, I don't have any ID on me. Can you just let it go? I'm over 18. Context, this woman had so much makeup on that I really couldn't tell what age she was. But to me, she didn't look old enough. Sorry, ma'am, I need to verify your age to make the purchase. By this stage, my till had a big line and the whole situation was starting to become a scene. This is where it starts to get interesting. I'm over 18, let me take my lighters. No ID, no lighters. You've already scanned it through. You can't take something out that's already been scanned. Never tell a cashier what they can and can't do. I looked back at my computer. The woman at this point smirks, thinking she's won. I turn the computer around to face her, look her dead in the eyes as I click the big red button that says no ID, and the lighters disappear from the list. Her mouth drops and her face goes red. I then, in my best retail voice, ask, will you be paying cash or card? The woman explodes and shouts at me with a lot of swearing, not even gonna dignify what she said. One thing she said was, my son will not have any lighters now. I hope you're happy. With that, she left without all her items and her lighters. I told my manager after, and he said I was doing my job, so I'm not in the wrong. But this is not the end. On my next shift, I get called into the manager's office and I'm told that this woman complained to the head office of the retail chain about me. Told them I verbally abused her and that she was seriously offended and wants to get the police involved. Turns out, the woman was 20, so she could have bought the lighters if she had brought ID. My manager tells me all of this smiling, but he still has the biggest bombshell to drop. After he received the phone call from head of office, they asked for the CCTV footage. My manager watched over the footage and heard everything, and I mean everything. Her last line before she left was of particular interest. It turned out that this woman did have a son, but her son was most certainly not 18. So, to cut a long story short, this woman is under investigation by the police for child abuse, and if found guilty is looking at jail time. Our next Reddit post is from Pseudonym. I was working in Disney at the Indiana Jones Epic Stunt Spectacular, or Epic as it was known to the cast members, and we'd already closed the theater for the start of a show. When the theater gets to max capacity, we legally can't put more people in there because of the fire code, etc. This woman barrels up to me, gets within 6 inches of my face, and waves her paper fast pass ticket in my face. She demanded to be allowed into the show and screams at her child. A little boy no more than 6 years old needs to see this show or his day is ruined. She was screaming so loud, veins were popping out of the front of her head. I stood there, calm and collected, explaining to her that the theater is full and we can't let anyone else in. She pushes past me with one arm, holding her child's arm in the other. She marches straight for the ropes that blocks the entrance and tries to hoist her son over the rope. Before she gets that far, a manager walks up and puts his hands in the air to try to contain the situation. He offers to get the kid an ice cream and provide VIP seats to the next show if she calms down and comes back later. After screaming about how rude I was to her, which I wasn't, she accepts the token of kindness. My manager turns to me and asks me how long my shift is today. I told him I was off at 6:30. He nods and he tells the irate woman that he will have me personally escort her to the VIP section down front. He writes her a ticket voucher for the ice cream and seats, and she fumed off with not even a thank you. My manager turns to me and apologizes on behalf of her. Then he asks me, "How many more shows do we have today?" I looked at the clock and realized it was after 5 p.m. and well in the middle of our last show of the day. I looked at my manager as a sly smile crept across his face. He had just given an entitled parent a VIP pass to a show that won't happen. The respect I already had for him just skyrocketed through the roof. I was long gone by the time she came back, but I would love to imagine the look on her face when she came back at 7 for the last show. Kid got an ice cream, and mom got mad. It was a win-win. So sometimes on this channel, I like to joke that as someone who reads entitled parent stories professionally, I am probably the leading expert on Karens. But it occurs to me that no, that can't possibly be right. The world's leading expert on Karens is probably some guy who's worked at Disney for like 30 years. Our next Reddit post is from Severe Item. Note, this was pre-coronavirus. My parents have a house in the city, and I'm home with them due to the pandemic. My house has a very small plot of dirt in front that is fenced in by a large black iron fence. It's very clear this is private property. My grandmother has a green thumb and brought some of her outdoor cacti over to plant in the yard many years ago. They survive every winter and bloom in the summer, and they're pretty cool plants. However, their spines and needles are very small and translucent. It's extremely hard to see them, and you can get pricked very easily. I myself have gotten pricked while tidying up the yard, and I obviously try to avoid the plants. The needles are also extremely hard to remove from your skin. My mom used to always decorate the garden by placing little models of dinosaurs or animals among the cacti. The kids around the neighborhood all loved it, and often when coming home, I would see some family with a young kid looking at the garden. It was cute, and my family had no issues. Until these entitled parents came along. My mom was in the house on a normal day when she heard some loud noises outside that weren't going away. So she looks outside and sees a group of parents with their kids. The parents are standing outside and around the iron fence while the kids are in the yard, which is almost completely covered in cacti. They're playing with the toy dinosaurs and animals while sitting in the cacti. It's clear the parents assumed the cacti didn't have any needles because they aren't really visible to the human eye. You barely see the needles when they're in your skin. As my mom is looking at them, the parents see her and get their kids out of the yard and leave. Those parents are not going to have any fun pulling hundreds and hundreds of translucent, tiny, thin needles from their children's arms, legs, and butts. Our next Reddit post is from Savvy Lay. So let me preface this saying this is my mom's story, not mine. I don't know all the details because I know it's a painful memory and I don't want to make her relive it. My mom is the youngest of two girls. She and my dad went to high school together, but didn't start dating until they were both in college. It was a chance meeting that they ran into each other in a bar. Cute story. Still happily married and in love 23 years later. It all started when my mom got engaged. My aunt was so upset because she wasn't engaged first, even though she was older. Throughout all the planning, she was pouting and kind of cold towards my mom. So the day of the wedding comes. My mom is getting ready with her bridesmaids. She's marrying the guy she's had a crush on since high school. She has her perfect venue, and she's wearing my great-grandmother's dress. Everything is going absolutely perfect until my aunt starts crying. My mom tried to comfort her because she's the most selfless woman in the world. Even though she was getting married in mere hours, she was focused on her sister. A little while later, after my aunt ran off, my grandmother pulled my mom aside. Like I said, I don't know every detail, but the conversation went something like this. "Hey, you're really making your sister upset." "What did I do?" "You're way too happy, and it's making her upset that she didn't get married before you." "Pardon me?" "Can you just be a little less happy?" My mom was in shock. This was supposed to be the happiest day of her life, and here was her mother telling her to be less happy so her sister didn't get butthurt. My mom's whole life, she was always told to set her accomplishments aside so her sister felt special too. When she was younger, she was told by her parents she would never go to college because she had a hard time in school. Dyslexia and ADD before professional help was available. My mom defied all odds and graduated with a master's degree. Can you guess who got all the glory for graduating college? You guessed it, my aunt. And on this day, my mom wasn't having it. Look, Mom, I'm sorry that my sister is upset, but today is about me and my husband. We're happy, and I'm not going to hide that or pretend I'm not just so my sister won't be sad. Today is the happiest day of my life, and I'm not giving that up for anyone. My grandmother shut up after that. She did give my mother a disapproving look though. I don't even need to have been there to see it. My mom still gets them all the time. After that, the wedding was perfect. My mother still talks about it with stars in her eyes. Now, my mother still has to deal with her garbage sometimes, but she also has my dad and us kids. 2 of us are adults now to help stand up for her. She's very happy, and I'm so glad she stood up for herself. There are a few stories like this that I know about, but this one makes me the saddest. I'm just glad she didn't let it ruin her wedding day. Edit, I told my mom about all the support she got in this post and how many upvotes it has. And she got so happy, joking that she was Reddit famous and was so overjoyed that everyone was so kind. Well, tell your mom to hold on to her butt because now she's about to be YouTube famous too. Our next Reddit post is from Sabretooth Diego. This happened today. I'm at the movie theater to see Onward. I have a service dog, a very large German Shepherd. His vest is navy camo and made out of my old uniform. Very clear do not pet patches. A kid, like 12 years old, ran at my dog and tried to pet him. I blocked his hand and told him don't pet him. He asked why and I said, you should never touch dogs you don't know. I tend to say this rather than don't touch service dogs because, in general, you should never pet a dog you don't know. And effing entitled mommy came screeching out of effing nowhere. Don't tell my child what to do. I told her, so raise him better, and walked off with my dog while listening to her scream. Effing hell. Our next Reddit post is from It's Still My TV. I'm a family law mediator and work at the downtown courthouse. There's no food or drink allowed, and the closest store is about a mile away. Despite this, my supervisors allowed me to have my own stash of candy in my office in case of emergencies. I'm type 1 diabetic, and sometimes I need a bit of sugar. It's just a small Ziploc bag with M&Ms. Anyway, yesterday morning I was mediating a couple over custody of their twin 8-year-old boys. They all showed up in pajamas and sweats, and the parents couldn't be bothered to control their children. The twins were running around the table, standing on the chairs and spinning in them, smearing their hands on the windows, just being disruptive. At one point, they started tugging at their mom and begging for something to eat. It had only been 30 minutes. Where's your vending machine? We don't have one of those, I'm sorry. Well, why not? Food isn't allowed in the building, ma'am, but our session is almost over. She's lying, Mom. I saw food in the candy drawer. The other kid lit up when he heard this, ran towards me, knocking over our documents from the table and pushing my arm out of the way, and opened my candy drawer. It wasn't a candy drawer, by the way. It was just a drawer I kept my stationery supplies and my M&Ms. I stood up in between the kid and the drawer as he rummaged through it. Completely irritated at this point, I closed the drawer and asked the parents if they wanted to reschedule. The father says, "You almost slammed my boy's hand over some candy." That was a gross over-exaggeration, of course. I told them I needed that candy because of my diabetes, to which entitled mother gave me an incredibly dirty look. If you've got diabetes, you don't need the candy. Just let them have some for Christ's sake. I'm type 1 diabetic. I'm sorry, but we're going to need to reschedule. Entitled dad started arguing with entitled mother about how she always ruins everything, and entitled mother responded by doubling down on her stance. She's wanting to kick us out because sugar is like drugs to diabetics. Entitled dad and entitled mom continued to argue, and as I went to call in for security, kid 1 stuck his foot out and tried to trip me. Luckily, I didn't fall, but he distracted me just enough for kid 2 to pull open the drawer and take the bag. The twins started running around, tossing the M&Ms at each other, trying to catch it in their mouths, while the entitled parents continued to yell at each other. I called security, which stopped the entitled parents arguing. Are you seriously calling security over candy? I think that was the point I lost all professionalism. I needed that in case my blood sugar got too low. Now look, it's all over my carpet and your kids' hands. Security came up, and the twins tried to bolt out of the room unsuccessfully. Entitled dad and security nearly got into a fight before being forced to leave. I took my break early and got another bag of M&Ms. And if you think this story sounds crazy, Potato Howitzer has his own story in the comments. I am also a type 1 diabetic. I carry around a bag of about 40 Hershey's Kisses. I always get asked by kids if they can have one. Usually, the parents are chill about me saying no due to me needing them for low blood sugar, but this one parent didn't. She legit called security on me for not giving her kids candy that was for me to stay alive if I'm low. Please, when someone tells you they need something for medical reasons, just effing trust them. That was rSlash Entitledparents, and if you like this video and want to see more, hit that subscribe button because I put out new Reddit videos every single day.